What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Framework. And as always, with my good friend Todd Lyons. What's going on, Todd? We
What's up,
are
Ryan? What's up, everybody?
the Lion and the Physique back for another episode. Thanks for doing this, man. So today we have a pretty interesting topic. Something that you and I have been discussing, just moments ago, was competing for the love of bodybuilding, or sort of, what is your reasoning for competing, right? I guess, my question to pose is, are you competing for the love of the sport? Are you competing for status? Are you competing for social media influence? Are you really just getting on stage because you absolutely love it? Todd, I'm going to let you go first as always. When did you realize that, fitness was the direction you wanted to go in, whether that be career or as a hobby? And then when did you decide, like, man, I want to take this to the next level and I want to get on a bodybuilding stage?
Well, for fitness, most of my life, I participated in sports, and then when I went to the military, I started getting more into like weightlifting and getting more serious about it than I had ever been in my life. And then when I came out in the military, I was working at my pharmaceutical job, and there's a guy that worked there, and I talked about this before on another podcast, but his name was Dennis. And Dennis looked like a little version of Lou Ferrigno, like literally looked like a little
Yeah.
version of. And so I would pick his brain on stuff because at the time, like he was the only other person I knew at work that would use supplements. So like he had the supplements out at the time. No Explode was really big, so he had like the red tubes everywhere and everything, and he would use it before he would leave work to go to the gym. So I started picking his brain on it, and he started giving me a lot of advice, and I was taking a lot of notes and everything. And I'm like, all right, let me try this, because I grew up watching like Pumping Iron, those Arnold movies. I'm like, let me see if I can do it this style, because I'm so used to the military style of building for endurance, both muscular and for cardio, that I've not really done the whole, putting on size to put on size kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So with Dennis's tutelage, I got bigger. And I remember one week at work where I had my dress shirts on, and I sat there and I kind of like stretched out a little bit, and all of a sudden it ripped, and I was like, oh shoot. And then the next day, like I went to stretch like this and it ripped, and Dennis is like, see,
It's
it's
happening.
working. So people started asking me questions as I started getting bigger and stuff like that. And that's when I was like, you know what, maybe I could get paid doing this. Maybe I hear people that are trainers and stuff, and it doesn't seem to be that too challenging of a career if you kind of know what you're doing and stuff. So let me try that. So that's how I got into fitness. Went to school, got my education, started working as a trainer, strength and conditioning coach, all that stuff. But it wasn't until I've been at my biggest in my life. I was like 216, 217. For me, that's huge. That my frame just doesn't like that size. And I wanted to see what was going on underneath it. And at the time, I remember Pat was kind of available in the area. Pat from Exile Training was our coach and everything. And I decided to reach out to Pat and let him know, like, hey, I kind of want to see. I want to see, can I get on stage? I don't necessarily need to win, but do I look like I should be on the stage? And that's how I got into it. Was then Pat started work. I started working with a bodybuilding coach, and we started chipping away. And all of a sudden, you're ready. You can do the stage thing, and that's my journey and how I got to the stage.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point there, where you had learned as much as you could up until a certain point. And I think we were lucky enough to get into fitness and even into the bodybuilding realm. Everybody starts for kind of one of two reasons, right? Right? It's usually a self-esteem thing, where you're the small guy wanting to be big, or the big to be small.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just kind of have a chip on your shoulder, and you want to, you know you want to push yourself, you want to be better than the next guy. It's a little more egotistical. But like, I have a very similar story. I'm not going to go through it. Everybody who kind of follows and watches has heard it a million times before. Same concept as you. I was in the service, got on an incline bench for the first time. There was 25s on each side, and I couldn't even get it off. And that was kind of the switch. I graduated high school, dude, in 2011. I was
Mm-hmm.
135 pounds.
You sound like me. I was always the skinny, lean kid growing up.
So I could always fight. I boxed my whole life. I was strong. Like, it was just kind of like, if somebody wanted to wrestle, like, I just had to give 110%, like my life depended on it, because I always felt like I had something to prove.
Mm-hmm.
So again, years of training, 4 or 5 years up until that point, and I had felt like I wasn't gaining the size that I thought I should have. Again, I wasn't really working with coaches or doing anything like that. I was just like, man, I'm eating everything in sight. I'm eating the fast food. I'm doing the protein shakes. I'm training as hard as I can. I tried 5x5s. I did the 7x7s, the FST7, which was popular around that 2015, 2016 time. I was just doing everything. And I was like, you know what? Maybe if I do a contest prep and I come back down, I take it all off. And I wasn't, dude, by any, I was like 160 pounds, 165 pounds, which for me was like the most I ever weighed. But I was like, if I just come down as hard as I can, maybe I'll skyrocket. And I think that kind of stuck with me even to this date, is like every time I'm having trouble breaking through a plateau, or I kind of hit that 195, 196 mark, I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I come down to 175, I'll get above 200. And then before it was, well, I can't break 190. So if I come to 165, I'll get to 195. So I always kind of hit that plateau and I'm like, let's hit the reset button and see if I can't, take 2 steps forward or 2 steps back and then 3 steps forward. That's kind of how we got to where we are today. And it was just, before I even reached out to a coach, it was like, I need to know that I'm dedicated enough for this, that I'm ready to commit to this. Like, this isn't an 8. And I went in with the same kind of mindset as you, is this isn't something that I can accomplish in 6 to 8 weeks. This
Right.
isn't something that I can do myself, especially for somebody who had never stepped on stage, which kind of takes us to our topic today that I want to, talk with you about is, you see a lot of these people, and social media has just overtaken, the bodybuilding community in a good way and a bad way. From positive light, there's so much more light shined on our sport. There's so many more competitors. It's such a niche hobby to be, to take fitness to the next level and to be, considered a quote unquote bodybuilder. And that goes for any category, any division. If you are exercising and dieting to eventually get on stage and present your physique, I consider you a bodybuilder in some aspect. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%.
So I think where we run into the issue is, are we dieting for life or are we dieting for the stage? So let me pick your brain a little bit, and you can kind of tell me, because we have, even on this show and through these episodes, we've touched on a few times about the influencers and all that stuff. Do you think that it hurts an individual's credibility if they're in your local gym or whatever, and they got the camera crews and the big following on social media, and they're constantly coming on and talking to you about the importance of your diet, and they're putting on their story about the cardio that they're putting in and the steps and training tips? But then maybe you do invest in this person. Maybe you do want to look at what they've accomplished. You are in the market for a coach, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And you see they've never competed before. Or maybe it's a female bikini athlete.
Mhm.
She's always kind of been 115, 120 pounds. Like, how can you say, through years of dieting and training and cardio and exercise, you too can look like this? And I just think that it's unfair. It's an unfair picture to paint, that
Mhm.
people are using the filters and using all these fancy social media things to kind of promote themselves as an athlete, but has
Mhm.
never stepped on stage. So again, I digress. Do you think that there's a major issue with kind of how social media has impacted even somebody's conscious mind, that they can be this big influencer athlete if they've never stepped on stage?
I think it has. I think back in the day, before the internet, the only way you could get notoriety was to get into the magazines and be known out there. And now that you have this device or devices that at any given moment in front of your hands, you too can become, a celebrity or local celebrity influencer whenever you want, at any time you want, any day of the week, doesn't matter, holidays or whatever. You can get on and promote whatever you got to promote. Some people are good with it, promoting out there and being realistic and showing them how long it took them to get there. And others are a little bit misleading on what they can what people can achieve and everything.
That's it.
Um,
I think there's, and I'm not going to cut you off. I'm going to let you go. You just mentioned it. It's a misleading, like, I'm probably not wording it right, but it's just misleading. Like I said, they're promoting, it's like this person's walking around. It's like they're like a walking billboard. And they're, they're working out and they're taking their selfies, and, they're training this way, or, maybe they're doing something that as an athlete, you're like, oh, that may work for you, but I would never do that for a contest prep, or I would never do that. Meanwhile, this person's promoting it as like, well, eventually I want to get on stage. And it's like, well, you're sort of misleading with your message, that you're walking around this gym as, you don't say hi to people, and you have an ego, and, there's this, like, it's almost like a gym cafeteria, right? Like, they're trying to promote themselves as the popular kids who works with the local coaches, and it, like you said, is this local influencer superstar. But as an athlete, like, I think all you're doing is hurting the brand, so to speak. Don't you think?
yeah, I mean, I'm one for, letting people kind of do whatever they kind of want to do with whatever they want. So if they want to be a bodybuilder or whatever, but to me, it doesn't make any sense to want to do that, but never actually compete. Like, I don't understand, like, why you'd want to attempt to run yourself through that with the purpose of competing. It's kind of like, oh, I learned how to do jujitsu online, but yet I'm not actually out there on the mat. I'm not competing. I'm not doing anything else. So, like, does that make you an actual jujitsu person?
Of course.
That kind of, to me, that's what it looks like. And if you're just dieting to do that stuff, I mean, I guess whatever, but without a purpose, it kind of is like, why are you doing it to yourself? Why are you portraying yourself as this when you'll never actually get on stage once in your life?
Here's something that I've seen a ton of, and
Mhm.
somebody does, an 8 to 10 week prep there. And I say this with the utmost respect. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody's journey to the stage, if that's where they ended up getting to.
Right.
As you and I have put, you got to get up there at least once, right? Everybody's a beginner. But the other side of it, they compete one time. They're a below average, they're a mediocre competitor. Obviously,
Mhm.
I consider myself a mediocre competitor, although I have the mindset and I live the lifestyle. I have not yet, cracked the top two, in a larger class, so to speak. I've placed like 2 out of 3, and I don't ever count that. But they're a mediocre average bodybuilder. They've competed maybe 1 or 2 times, and all of a sudden they're promoting their coaching business on social media.
Right.
You having a degree and years of experience, and obviously you've had to build that up, but could you imagine, you're looking over somebody's social media and you're seeing, these quality pictures, and, their fancy reels, and they're being followed around with a, videographer and a photographer, and they're at this big fancy local gym, and you want to hire this person as a beginner, and then you find out, like, yeah, they're going to coach me to the stage, but they've never been on stage, or they've been on stage once and they were like 7 out of 10. Like, how do you justify that? Or can you even justify it?
Well, people do it. That's just
Yeah, obviously.
how it's just, unfortunately, it's the way society is now. But that's why I waited a bit until I did my shows on my own, because even with my education and everything like that, I had to be run through it like more than a few times to kind of see how what I learned would transcribe over into the bodybuilding world before I started to think, okay, I can do this on my own. I can coach myself through this. And that's from years of like working with like wrestlers and people who competed in sports where weight cutting existed. Bodybuilding's similar, but not exactly similar to that. So it wasn't until I, went through a few shows with my education background, I was like, okay, I can do this. But there's a lot of other people out there where it's scary, where they shouldn't be allowed to do this. They do maybe a show or something like that. I mean, I've had clients come to me that went to influencers that I've had to fix because the influencers don't know how to correct things on people, healthy weight loss, healthy workout plan, getting them to a stage where they can be super lean and everything, and in a healthy way to compete. And a lot of them, some of them, no, not a lot of them, I should say, but some of them suffered like medical events where it took them a while to get out of it, to get them to be normal again for themselves. And I don't know. It goes back to there's been this debate in the fitness world that you should have to have some kind of certification or license to be able to work with people. I don't see why, doctors have to have that, but yet you get to work with these, coaches and whoever. They can give you whatever you want, run you through the stuff, and then not really suffer the repercussions of it for what they do to you. It does, that just blows my mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think we see it with coaches as well. We obviously talked about the athlete side of things of, you know, I think fancy filters
Mhm.
don't replace a quality physique. And
Right.
you can use all the filters and take all the pictures and have, the high tech equipment following you around in the gym, making it look like you're training intense and you're posing as, this, that, and the other, and you're keeping up with all the stuff. But if you actually get on that stage, you're going to be exposed.
Right.
And, that carries over into the coaching, argument is, sure, there might be coaches who, similar to my mindset, realize, hey, I may never be this professional bodybuilder. I may not make money doing this, but I could coach. I have the mindset. Me personally, I've done 6 or 7 shows to this point over the span of 10 years. I've done the 10-week preps, I've done the 20-week preps. I know water manipulation, I know peak week. But to your point, does that make me qualified to run somebody through a 20-week prep? I don't know about women's hormones. I don't know. What if somebody comes to me and says, yeah, these are the drugs I'm taking. These are my IUs. This is my stuff. Like, but now coach me. I personally couldn't take on that client because I don't have the knowledge of it. I don't know if
Right.
that makes me any more or any less credible. But I just think it's a big responsibility to take somebody from either day one or day 1000 and they're ready to get on stage for the first time or again, and to say, well, because I've done that once or twice, I can coach this person. I think that's a huge responsibility. The stress, the hormones, I mean, the sleep, the recovery, the training, the diet, all this stuff that accompanies the mindset, so to speak, when it comes to a contest prep, and to just kind of take somebody because I think I know what I'm doing or because I have a big following on social media, that doesn't make me a coach. It doesn't make me a great athlete because I take good pictures. I think you made a great point saying that, doctors have to be, have to have a degree to do their job. And, nutritionists, a true nutritionist has a degree. And I think a lot of people don't know that is, they have a few years of dieting experience and all of a sudden they're this online one-on-one nutrition coach. That's not how this works. Do you see that a lot with, people are competing once or twice and then all of a sudden they're certifying themselves as this online guru?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's everywhere. I mean, there's people that do one show and they're already out there selling their packages to people to get on their plan and blah blah blah. And some of them may have a background like what I have, some of them, but a lot of them I find don't have the background that I have, or other coaches that are well more advanced than I do. There's coaches out there with master's degrees and even doctorates and stuff that know far more than what I do. And yet people that have far less than that are out there actually teaching people and everything, which is kind of scary and stuff. And that's why I tell people, do your research on these people, see what their background actually is and everything before you give them your hard-earned money. And you might end up getting a medical incident because of that, because they don't know how to balance their nutrition out with you, and you end up going into some kind of, if you have diabetes and they don't treat and they're not providing you with the right amount of carbohydrates, you can go into a diabetic event or whatever. I mean, it's pretty scary out there. It's pretty scary, and it's, I feel bad for anybody that's ever gotten tricked by one of these people and then didn't get their money back for this or got hurt really badly.
Yeah, I mean, let's as we come to the end of this episode and we kind of wrap things up. I think more or less Todd and I are just trying to pose the question to the viewers and an audience that, are you competing for a professional status? Is this going to be your life? Are you competing for social media influence? Are you competing for the true love of bodybuilding? It doesn't matter where this takes me. I just want to get on stage. Me personally, and I know you as well, we just love to be in the gym. That's the hardest thing, is taking the rest day, right?
Right.
So, it's finding that structure in life. And I think if you can answer that question honestly with yourself, I think it will impact positively other aspects of your life and your training and your mental health. I think we're too focused on likes and comments and followers, that we see this, this audience, the bodybuilding and fitness and that audience, and we think that we can attack that because you have the genetics to where you don't really have to train hard and you don't really have to diet, but you can reach X amount of followers. So people are, that's where the social media influence is. And if that's your bread and butter, and that's where you're going to start making money, and that's where you build a following, and that's important to you, hats off to you. Keep pursuing that. But there are people out there like Todd and myself and our, very close friends and other competitors and coaches who live, eat, breathe, and sleep this sport. We do it for the love of bodybuilding. And for fuck's sake, stop pretending like you are the next Miss or Mr. Olympia when all you do is use your fancy filters and walk around with your cool camera crews. Listen, I'm guilty of it. If you're seeing my YouTube page right now, I've done a couple training videos. I'm going to do more, but I do it because I love it. Like, I have the time. I'm not trying to influence anybody. Todd, I know you know that about me. I wake up every day and I love this and I love the structure of it. So Todd, any last words for kind of, I posed the question to the followers and the viewers, what are you truly doing this for?
Right. No, that's 100%, because the biggest thing also too I see now is everybody wants to be a pro. Everyone wants to be a pro bodybuilder. I got to become a pro. I got to get my pro card by any means necessary. And I think people lose the journey that you're supposed to be on for fitness and everything. It's kind of like any other martial art where you go through the motions and you progress through and you learn new things and you can apply it to different avenues in your sport. Same thing with bodybuilding. It's not something to get to the finish line as quickly as possible, because guess what? Those things that help you get to the finish line quickly as possible could possibly shorten your life as quickly as possible. Or you get to the finish line. I know people that got their pro card and it's like, okay, now what? They thought that this whole epiphany would happen and their life would change. And reality, that's not the case. You got to enjoy the journey, and you should make it. That's the most enjoyable part of the sport, is the journey to get to the stage. The stage competing is just the icing on the cake, but the journey there is the actual reason why you do this.
Yeah, whatever your avenue is, whatever your reason is for having the lifestyle of and being in that health and fitness kind of genre, or that that niche group, whatever your reasoning is, just own it. If you're a beginner, own that you're a beginner. If you're looking to grow and you're looking to be a better version of yourself, just own that. Hire the coach, put in the work. Nothing happens overnight. And as I said, no fancy filter is going to replace hard work.
100%.
As always, thank you, Todd. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by the Framework. Another great episode of The Lion and the Physique. Thanks for stopping by the Framework.
Take care.